Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on the business model canvas as a design tool for market systems interventions, its application and impact. We have had a lot of interest from the Markets in Crisis group members on understanding our application and our experience in applying the business model canvas as a tool for market systems interventions. And today we're going to answer to a few of the questions that you raised and also share our experience. So I'm Rubaiyath Sarwar, Managing Director, Innovision Consulting. So those who might not know about us, Innovision is an international development consultancy. We're founded in 2008 and currently we're operating out of Dhaka, Abuja, and London with about 35 full-time technical staffs and more than 20 associate consultants who have been working around the world on issues related to agriculture, industries, health, wash, finance, nutrition markets, and also on issues related to extreme poverty, livelihood, women's economic empowerment, climate resilience, gender-based violence, refugee crisis management. So Innovision, at its heart, we apply the systems lens and the systemic approach to design solutions to the challenges that are related to extreme poverty. And on doing so, we also have been applying the business model canvas, especially when it comes to designing the systemic solutions to the systemic constraints in the markets of interest. So today, we're going to discuss a little bit about how we see the business model canvas in context of market systems development. We would also explain who is it for, how it can be used, and when. In short, what is this business case, and what would be the intended impact from the use of this business model canvas in designing market systems interventions. And finally, we'll briefly discuss about how Innovision can help you in your endeavor. So I understand that all of us who are listening, we have very strong experience in applying the market systems development approach in challenges related to poverty. So what we, in a sense, want to do is we want to facilitate systems change, and that calls for solving root causes in the systems in our pursuit for scalable and sustainable solution to the poverty challenges. And on that pursuit, we work with the private sectors and lead firms. I'm saying often because not always market system solutions are delivered through private sector lead firms, but there are a significant number of interventions that are delivered through the private sectors and lead firms. And we expect that the private sector and the lead firms would be developing, investing, and delivering the solution, which will have its intended impact on pro growth to the beneficiaries that we are targeting. So in the pursuit of scalability and sustainability of the solution, we're very much interested on the viability of the intervention that is being promoted. I will interchangeably use intervention and solution in this presentation. So when we are promoting a solution, we are interested about commercial viability of the solution, because we assume that if it is viable, then the private sector, the lead firm, and the market will sustain the solution, and that will lead to evolution and growth. And if we are having evolution and growth, we will observe crowding in from other system sector, which can be through replication of the same solution or change in the solution that was originally proposed. We assume that the other interconnected markets will also innovate in response to the solution that we have promoted, and that will eventually lead to scalability. Now, when we sit on the design board after we have undertaken our market systems analysis and we have identified the systemic constraints that we want to address, and we try to connect all these dots, we face the myriads of questions. We ask ourselves, what could be the potential systemic solution? We try to answer the question how the solution is going to affect or impact the targeted enterprises and beneficiaries. We also ask who has the incentive to solve and what will incentivize them to solve. And that actually leads us to identification of the potential partners who we then bring in as the lead firms and private sector interested and investing in the solution that we're trying to promote. But also while selecting the partner and undertaking our exercise, we ask this question, why the system is not addressing the problem right now. So that takes us back to the systemic constraint definition again, and more often than not at this stage, we have a better view of the systemic constraint, but generally, before making a decision on the intervention itself, we are asking essentially why the system is not addressing that problem right now. And therefore, that leads us to the question, what is it in the solution that we're promoting that would make it sustainable and scalable? And to facilitate that process, what activities and resources should the facilitator be providing and why? So I define these questions, this broad set of questions as design questions that a facilitator will face to solve the challenges in the market systems. Now, when we design the solution, we have a strategic vision and plan, and you all would probably agree that because of our deep experience and knowledge, which we gather through the market systems analysis, when we put it with intuition, we get to our vision and plan. But also, we blend this experience and knowledge and intuition through frameworks. And those frameworks then allow us to better comprehend the scenario that we are trying to promote or address. So the business model canvas will work as a framework that allows us to use our experience and knowledge and intuition to formulate the strategic vision for growth or a systems change that we're interested about. Now, let's build the framework itself, and I will try to use intuition more as we evolve through this exercise for a few minutes. So to build intuition, let's refresh our head around the concepts that we juggle with when we design the solutions. We are trying to find a solution to the systemic constraint. We're dealing with the issues of problems. We are trying to define value proposition. More often than not, you're asked, what is the value proposition? And then let's say we are trying to find out who the target beneficiaries are for this intervention, how the target beneficiaries are going to be impacted, what kind of resources and activities we will be requiring, who is the right partner, what will make it commercially viable, what would be the source of revenue in that context, what would be the cost, where is the private sector here, who are the customers here. So we're trying to connect these concepts when we're designing the interventions. Now, so you all must have come across this framework. There are 9 elements. Something sits on the middle, and then we have the right side and the left side. So it's very important for us to understand the right side and left side of this framework. So the 9 elements, as we know of, on the center, we have the value proposition. And then on the right side, the gray areas, we have the customer segments, channels, relationships, and the revenue streams. And on the left-hand side, we have the key partnerships, activities, resources, and cost structure. Now, the right-hand side, these are the revenue creation elements. And on the left-hand side, we have the cost creation elements. So the right-hand side and the left-hand side needs to be blended to offer the right sets of value so that we get to the commercially viable solution. Now, that is for any businesses that is going to apply this solution. But in our case, we are using this framework to achieve a desired impact. So, and also we are using this framework in context of an intervention that is potentially solving a systemic constraint. And also we are doing it for a set targeted group of beneficiaries who are disadvantaged, and therefore they require this solution. So when I start to apply this solution framework together with the market systems practitioners, they ask me, where is my systemic constraint? Where is my target beneficiary? Where is my impact? So we don't essentially see this in these 9 elements. So I will add to this framework 3 more elements, A, B, and C. And I'll show you what these are. So to do that, I will explain to you a recent case that I've come across. I cannot give you more details about the project, but that project essentially did not use a business model canvas. So when I gathered the information, I started to think from the framework's perspective whether that intervention leads to a viable solution. And I started to use the information that was available from the project to see how it fits into the framework. So the project is working on aromatic rice, and it finds a problem that mechanization has led to displacement of female workers, and the female workers constituted 70% of the workforce in that value chain. Now, the project is interested on gender transformative impact, and therefore, displaced female workers is a great target group for them. But the question is, how do they support the displaced female workers? The project was asking, how do we support the displaced female workers? Now, the market analysis also showed that there is an untapped opportunity. There's demand for stitching rice bags for rice buyers, but there was not enough supply. So the project saw that as an opportunity and then decided that it will support producer groups to develop a unit to stitch rice bags. Now, here I will introduce another concept which is of pivotal interest, which is pain point. So the pain point of the female workers here is that they have lost jobs and they have some skills, but there is no local opportunity. But there's also pain point of the rice buyers. The quality of the bags are poor, and if you have some experience on these agricultural value chains, you will understand that when you have poor logistics, poor quality of the bags for transportation, it will affect the quality of the rice, and which will mean that the buyers will push down the wastage to the traders, and then the traders will push it down to the farmers, which will mean that eventually the farmers will also get lower price because of the poor quality of the rice bags, leading to poor quality of the rice. So here the pain points of the rice buyers is that the quality of the bags are poor, and the pain point of the female workers is that they have lost jobs. Now, why the pain point analysis is important is because that is what will connect to the core idea that we are going to use to design a business model around the systemic constraint of interest here. More often than not, what I've seen is that because we are so interested on solving the systemic constraint, we kind of lose sight on the pain points of the target groups. The target groups, they're not interested about the systemic constraints. They do not care about how complex the systems are. Their pains are real and immediate. And if the solution that we're promoting is not connecting to the pain that the target groups are facing, then the interventions will not generate the traction that is needed for commercial viability. And this is where more often than not, I see the immediate disconnection. We are investing so hard on systems constraints that we are forgetting how the constraint is connected to the pain, which is of immediate interest. And that's where our solution will rest. So the project frames a solution that they're going to work with the producer groups to set up stitching units for rice bags. And the target is that, there will be several rice producer groups who would be onboarded by the project. They do so, they set up the stitching units, they supply the machines, they bear the cost for the stitching units, and the stitching units starts to operate. What happens then? So let's look at the business model canvas for this intervention. Now, on the core, on the grid, you have quality rice bags, but also you have some pivots. But before going to the green, let's focus on the systems constraint and the pain point where I asked all of us to pay our attention to. The systemic constraint that we started with was about mechanization leading to displacement of female workers. And as I said, the pain point is that for the female workers, there's no alternative opportunities. They're losing their jobs. And for the buyers, the pain point is about poor quality of the rice bags. So, and the solution, as I said, was about setting up stitching units for displaced female workers under management of the producer groups. Now, the value proposition, quality rice bags, it is straightforward, connects to the pain of the buyer, that is poor quality rice bags. The assumption here is that If the producer groups is able to solve that pain, then that will allow them to stitch more rice bags, and stitching more rice bags then equates to having more female workers employed because there is more demand. So that is salient on the backside, the impact, and we will connect the impact later. But let's focus on the value proposition here. The value proposition, as I said, is for the rice traders, buyers, and importers, which is quality rice bags, and the pivoted solution is produced as specification, minimum defect, on-time delivery, and so on and so forth. But pivoted solution is about targeting the local fashion wear and accessory buyers. So the original idea was about targeting rice traders and buyers and importers with quality rice bags. But then they also saw an opportunity that the local fashion wear and accessory buyers also needed products. And the same stitching units and the same female workers can be used to supply to a new value chain. And the value proposition there was produced as per specification and minimum defect and on-time delivery. But that also connects to the value proposition that they can offer to the rice traders, buyers, and importers. So what essentially you're saying is that the same value proposition, but the two different types of institutional buyers. Now, more often than not, we will end up plotting our female workers on the customer side, but the female workers are not paying for the product. So the customers are those who are paying for the product that is being produced, which in this case are the rice bags and the fashion wares and accessories. So therefore, the female producers, producer groups, none of them come in this framework anywhere here. So they're on the backside. Now, when the producer groups are offering that value, they do it through contract manufacturing or direct retail and direct made to order. So those are the channels through which the products are reaching to the buyers or the customers. And then they're retaining the customers through regular support, call, there are WhatsApp groups, they're communicating to the buyers through WhatsApp group, they're getting the demand, they're trying to solve their problem, they're co-creating the products, they're undertaking joint promotions. So all of these are sustaining the relationship between the producer groups and the buyers and traders. And the producer groups are therefore earning from the sales of the products, but their earning is through commissions and margins because it's the female workers who are producing these bags. And they're earning by selling their labor and by supplying the products. So the female workers are employed, they're earning, the producer groups are earning, the buyers, they're being able to solve a pain that they faced. Now, to sustain the right-hand side, to sustain the activities that we're talking about of production, they will need stitching machines, fabric, and capital. So these are the core key resources that they will need. They will also probably need a space to set up the stitching units. They will need logistics to supply. So you can plot all of them on the key resources. But then there are some key activities that will translate the resources to the products. So you will need to recruit and train the female workers. You will need to identify the buyers. You will need to negotiate with them. But the producer groups will have to have agreements with the buyers. They will have to follow up on that. They'll have to replace machines. So all of these are part of the key activities. Now, while managing this work, the producer groups will come across some of the challenges. Where do I get my machines? Where do I get fund? Where do I get credit? So that's where the machine suppliers, local MFIs, they will come in as key partners. And then also the project at one point figured that they could do more by partnering with the National Skills Development Agency, National Cooperative Agency, who can also promote more producer groups to get into this kind of intervention. So the project therefore facilitates the partnerships between these agencies with the producer groups. So on the left-hand side, you have all of these partnerships happening to support the producer groups to sustainably deliver the value, and that then have cost elements which are related to machine purchase, maintenance and replacement, office and administration costs, transportation and raw materials, and all sorts. So eventually, this cost structure would have to be matched with the revenue stream, and then the revenue should be enough to ensure that the cost can be borne by the solution service provider here, which is the producer groups. So when we present this, people will be asking, where is our impact? Now, to show where the impact is, I introduced to you the bottom box where you can see the solution impact is related to number of female workers who have been employed, number of existing and new producer groups managing the stitching units, number of new buyers, rice traders, as well as fashion accessory buyers. So from the top, when we had the systemic constraints to the pain points, to the solution, to the value proposition, and then eventually leading to the impact, like a funnel approach, what you can see at the middle. So the impact does not need to come on the center. It is the eventual outcome, and that comes from the sustainable operations, which can be measured through enough revenue that is needed to manage the cost. Now, what happens is that if you put that impact at the middle, then the cost of that impact will have to be borne by the customers too. And what happens is that we forget who's paying for that impact. So, and then when it becomes too expensive, the whole business model fails, because as soon as the project withdraws the money, withdraws the support, then basically the whole impact, that the pro-poor impact that happened, would be removed from here. So in this case, for instance, if the producer groups are not able to operate the stitching units from the margins that they're getting, and also from the revenues that they generate for the producer groups through other actions, they would not be able to sustain this. And also, at one point, the project might find out that to sustain the impact, these producer groups would need more support. And like I said, the machine suppliers and the local microfinance institutions, they can come in. The machine suppliers have definitive interest. If there are more producer groups doing these kind of activities, that means more sales for them. Similarly, if there are more producer groups doing this kind of activities, there'll be more need for credits to purchase the stitching units and the raw materials. So therefore, they also have interest. So once you understand who has the incentive to support the solution so that it generates the impact, that the impact does not necessarily need to be isolated from the core value proposition. The core value proposition is so integral to creation of the impact that there is no separate activity needed to achieve that. So this is how this business model canvas would look like. So now you might be asking, so how do we facilitate scale and sustainability by using this canvas? So what I do is I use this canvas as a quick map to draw my idea, to connect all the dots, to connect all the information that we have gathered from the market systems analysis. So once we do that, we start to use that to facilitate BMC. And to do so, we need to identify the partners who would be eventually holding this business model canvas. So together with them, we build this business model canvas. So it is a participatory method. And eventually the private sector partner or the producer groups in the case that I shared, they should then be building it together with the market systems facilitator, which is in this case the project, to come up with the business model canvas. Eventually there will be a lot of evolution to the canvas. There will be a lot of iterations happening from the experience. There will be a lot of pivoting happening from the opportunities that they will come across. But the project's job is, once the key resources, activities, and partnerships have been mapped, so you understand specifically where exactly the solution provider would require support. So it might be that some of the resources are not readily available. So you build that resources. So it might be that it's so risky that nobody is willing to put in the fund. So you are then sharing some grants. So in this case, for instance, the project provided the grant to purchase these stitching machines. In most of the cases, the market systems projects, they do not want to directly fund capital machineries. But I mean, if you're using the business model canvas, whether or not to invest on capital machineries, the decision would be dependent on the analysis that the eventual revenue would be high enough so that the replacement of machineries or the procurement of new machineries can be done by the producer groups. As long as that can be done, it doesn't matter if the project is buying 10 odd machines, because there is enough revenue generation possibility from which the producer groups can buy more machines. So it doesn't really have any distortionary effect. So the business model canvas allows us to identify where exactly the needs for capacity buildings are, and then right size the support. So it exactly allows us to answer, like I explained, how the intervention and the resulting solution would be commercially viable. And in that context, what supports should be provided by the project? What exactly should be the support? I mean, we will be able to right size the support. If it is too much, then it is going to affect the revenue generation possibilities. Or if we are supporting too much, that we're building too many resources, and it is never going to be sustainable from the revenue streams generated, the cost structure is too heavy because of the intervention, then we are not right sizing our support. So what the BMC is allowing us to do is helping us to right size the scope and define the exact nature of the support that the project is going to provide. So how do we apply it in different contexts? So for instance, in case of extreme poverty, if you're dealing with extreme poverty issues and humanitarian crisis and so on and so forth. So for instance, if you're in an extreme poverty program, you're more likely to promote micro enterprises. So each of these micro enterprises would have to sustain their products in the overall market. So you can have a business model canvas for the group of products. So for example, if you're promoting handicrafts, then you can have a business model canvas for handicrafts, and then that can be translated to each of the micro enterprises, and they can do so. So we do it quite a lot with enterprise development projects, micro enterprise development projects, where they work for specific product categories, and then they use the business model canvas to support the enterprises that they're working with. And then also, if you are in an extreme poverty program and you're interested about promoting certain financial products, then also you can use this business model canvas to design the framework business model for that specific financial products. Now, in humanitarian assistance, there are several interventions which are one-off and one-time, and those don't need to be sustained. So when the question of sustainability and scalability is not there, when the question of commercial viability is not there, this business model canvas is not going to add much value. If our need is about addressing an immediate crisis, say, for example, some people would require access to water for, let's say, 6 months before the government or the local authorities are able to supply the water to the crisis affected area, it doesn't really require any business model canvas. But then if we are talking about an area which has been so much affected by that crisis, that saline intrusion, or let's say a water crisis, and eventually it would not be sustainable for that crisis to be handled individually by the government agencies, and you need a commercial fix or a social fix, then that's the context where this business model canvas will work. So the canvas works brilliantly for financial inclusion solutions like mobile financial services or MFS-based offerings for the poor people, agent banking. It works brilliantly with wash solutions like water treatment facilities and hygiene latrines. If you are dealing with skills development, if you're in a skills development project, it works great for skills centers, a specific course or curriculum that we want to promote, a Tibet center that you want to support on. So it works brilliantly with that. But who is it for? So as I said, for the project, this is a design tool. So the project can use it as a design tool and then hand it over to the private sector who will be using it to grow and evolve. Now, do we expect that the private sector will always be going to the drawing board and design this business model canvas? Yes or no? It doesn't necessarily need to be, but it becomes intuitive at one point. So it is not always required. For me, for instance, I design many interventions. I also have many enterprises where I have investment in. So I use this as a go-to tool for me. It takes just 30, 40 minutes to brainstorm my idea and what is required. So it does become a natural process eventually for the facilitator and also for the private sector who we are supporting to use this tool. Now, what does it not show? Like I said, I mean, if you go back to the framework that I was showing to you, so here you can go up to the level of impact. But let's say, what about other companies also coming up? I mean, they will definitely pivot. They will probably add more to the same. Like in this case, a pivot could be that you have another business model canvas for machine suppliers who then starts to supply the producer groups. In that business model, the machine suppliers become the holder, which means that the core value proposition would be from the machine suppliers to the producer groups who would be setting up the stitching units. So the business model canvas flips in this case. So the machine suppliers are no longer the partners, they become the solution service providers, and the producer groups become the customer segments. So when we work with projects to design very many interventions in the same project, the same organization is a partner in one case, and in the other case, they're the solution provider, and in other case, they're also a customer. So the placement of the organization is very fluid depending on what the model is intending to solve. This might hear a bit heavy. It is, because when we deal with these issues in the workshop setting, it requires a lot of brainstorming and discussion to fix these issues. So finally, how Innovision can help. So we have designed a very effective online short training, which takes about 15 hours spread over 3 days of training, and also then about 6 hours of one-to-one facilitation to solve a business case. And then we also do face-to-face project-specific or organization-specific BMC workshops, which is usually a 3 days intense workshop together with the project team, and where we work with them to design business model canvas for the specific interventions. We are currently working on offering an international training for MSc professionals in Bangkok, Thailand on the business model canvas. We will soon announce that program, given the interest that we are seeing around the tool that we're proposing. The BMC is currently embedded in all the market analysis that Innovision undertakes, and also it is part of our technical assistance services for market systems development projects. I tried to explain a concept in relatively easier terms. I believe it is easy, it is intuitive, but it helps a lot, it impacts a lot in solving the challenges that we are interested to solve. So thank you so much for listening. And if you have more questions, if you want to engage with us on understanding the application of this tool, do reach out to us. This is my email address. I'll be more than happy to support you. Thank you so much.